Alrighty, boys and girls. So here we go. First preview of the season as the 2026 MLS regular season is about to begin. It's hard to believe the offseason is now already over. It feels like yesterday that Inter Miami was crowned as MLS Cup champion in 2025, and I won't be surprised that it would be tomorrow before we would see the MLS Cup 2026 winner, because throughout the season it feels like the season just goes by relatively fast. But that being said, because this is the first game of the season, the good thing about the beginning of the season is that pretty much everybody starts from fresh. And yes, that includes teams that probably have no chance this season, are clearly rebuilding. At least they start with a record of 0-0-0, and they say, hey, at least we have the same record as the defending MLS champion. And while that might not last for long, hey, they're definitely going to take as many positive, because for some of those teams are not going to do very well this season, yeah, there's not going to be a lot of positive when it comes to the season. But again, it's a fresh start. And, one thing I will also say about opening weekend matchup is that things can be very unpredictable on the opening weekend. And the reason why it's unpredictable is because of the way that everybody is playing their first competitive game. It depends on how teams would look in their first competitive game. And not to mention, teams that were involved in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, especially a lot of MLS team had to play on the road for the first leg just a couple of days ago. You wonder if fatigue could be a fact. And we've seen before where teams play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, especially in the early round, when they come back to league play, they don't look as good as they should be. So that should be very interesting to watch out for. But that being said, let us begin by talking about the first game of the 2026 MLS regular season. And the first game is St. Louis versus Char FC. You thought Inter Miami was the first game, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure everybody thought that was the case, especially their defending MLS Cup champion. And we'll definitely talk about Inter Miami and their blockbuster match of the week that they're going to be involving. But the first game of the season is actually St. Louis versus Charlotte, as this game starts at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And one of the things I like about the early part of the season, a lot of matinee games, a lot more matinee games than when we get into the summer, and that means that I don't have to worry too much about overlap as well, especially in the meat of the action around that 7:30 p.m. Eastern window, 4:30 p.m. Pacific window, though, and even the next hour as well, where there's just so many games for me to try to keep up with. But in terms of the all-time meeting, there's only one other meeting between both of these teams. Charlotte, of course, or I'm sorry, St. Louis, of course, won that game. I almost said Charlotte won that one, but St. Louis actually won that one. I believe it was a 3-1 win that they had against Shard FC. So yeah, this should be very interesting to see how it go. Obviously, this is the debut of Johan Dame. We're going to see a lot of head coach making their debut as well. And whenever you see a head coach make their debut, it's going to be fascinating, because usually teams get that new head coach boost straight away to begin the season, and we'll see whether or not if St. Louis can do so against a Charlotte team that has aspiration of doing pretty well this season. Now, moving on, we got Cincinnati versus Atlanta United. So this game is actually going to be on Big Fox. Pray the fact that this doesn't cut away in the middle of the game, but that's also why you probably should have Apple TV. And by the way, with MLS Season Pass no longer being a thing, now we have Apple TV basically is the way to watch MLS games. So if you already have Apple TV before, whether you're using it to watch other things or TV shows that's currently on Apple TV, you're all obviously going to get MLS games on that platform as the same thing. No longer where MLS Season Pass and Apple TV subscription is a complete different paywall. It's pretty much part of all the same thing. But yeah, this game starts at 4:45 p.m. Eastern, 1:45 p.m. Pacific, and in terms of the all-time meaning, 6-6-4 in favor of Atlanta United. So obviously coming into this game, it looked like maybe Cincinnati would be favorites coming in, but remember, this is the re-debut of Tata Martino, as this is the second time that Tata Martino is taking charge of this team. And remember, Cincinnati, they had a long travel from the Dominican Republic back to Cincinnati for this game as well. And I said it before, teams playing the CONCACAF Champions Cup, especially in the early round that is, they tends to not do so well, especially on a short rest. So we'll see whether or not Atlanta can take advantage of it, especially with the way that Tata Martino is back on this team. And a lot of Atlanta fans are maybe a little optimistic the fact that, yeah, with the way that Tata Martino was the reason why it got them to play that entertaining brand of soccer, and him kind of bringing it back, maybe this might be a beginning of them trying to get themselves back to the glory days that we saw with Atlanta being top dog in the East and a team that have regularly competed for MLS Cup and even winning one in their second season. Now, moving on is Vancouver versus RSL. So Vancouver, of course, another team that play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup as well. I believe they play down in Costa Rica, if I not mistaken. But they got a 0-0 draw in that one, and now they have to fly the long way back to British Columbia in this game against RSL. This is first of 3 games that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. That's very little for a 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. We usually get like 4 or 5 or even 6 of them, but only 3 this week. All-time meeting 15, 5, and 15 is the all-time meeting, so pretty tight in terms of the all-time meeting. And I'm gonna revert what I said about Cincinnati, the same thing I said about Vancouver, because the fact that both of these teams play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, maybe this is a chance for the road team to maybe take advantage of it, especially for a team that's still playing early in the season and maybe a little bit fatigued coming into this game, especially with the way that Vancouver pretty much play most of their starters in that game against Cartagena, similar to Cincinnati, of course, playing most of their starters in the game against OMM in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Now, moving on, we got Orlando City versus the New York Red Bulls. So this, of course, is the Michael Bradley debut of all the head coach debut that we're gonna see. I think this one I'm probably the most intrigued about because Michael Bradley being such a legend not only for the New York Red Bulls but also to the American soccer landscape. It'll be very interesting to see now he's taking charge of an MLS team for the very first time, and it's not an easy task. You have to go on the road to face against an Orlando side that always tends to do well when it comes to opening weekend match. It always tends to win those. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 11, 5, and 9 in favor of the New York Red Bulls, and also knowing the fact that the Red Bulls has struggled on the road. I mean, they're looking to not do what they did last season, which not only they struggled on the road last season, they only won 1 game last season that on the road, and they also had a lot of issue when it comes to scoring goals as well. They did not score a lot of goals on the road, kind of plays a big part of why they were so bad last season on the road. They're definitely looking to kick that trend up a way of maybe getting a win in this one in the debut of Michael Bradley as a head coach. Now, moving on, we got DC United versus the Philadelphia Union. So this is the last 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific start. All-time meeting 22, 8, and 10 in favor of the Philadelphia Union. And unlike what I said about Vancouver and Cincinnati, of course, they might have a little bit of a disadvantage because they play on the road. For the Union, of course, it's the same thing, and they even have a longer travel as well. Went all the way to Trinidad and Tobago, back to Philly for this game, or not back to Philly, I'm sorry, but have to go on the road to play against DC in this one. But you know what's good about this for the Union is the fact that they're playing DC United, probably their favorite team to play. And I've said this many times before. If you're a DC fan, I think there's two games on each of the regular season that you basically just might not even bother tuning in because it's going to be a disaster. And this is one of them. I mean, the last couple of meeting between the Union and DC has not been close whatsoever. In fact, when you go back to really the last 10 or 15 meeting, Philly absolutely dominate DC in those meetings. Now, I'm not quite sure if that might be the same thing again, but yeah, I mean, knowing previous history, I wouldn't be surprised that might be the case where the Union once again toy with DC United because that feels like it's the team that they always trying to gang up when it comes to help their goal differential and help boost their upcoming schedule as well by putting a pretty big beat down over DC United in recent time. Now we get to the 8:30 p.m. and the late West Coast kickoff. There's a lot of them. In fact, majority of the game that happened this weekend will happen around this range. Starting off with Nashville versus New England Revolution. This is the first of 4 games that starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, a lot more 8:30 p.m. start than we expected. One of the rare time we see more 8:30 p.m. Eastern start than 7:30 p.m. Eastern start. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 8, 5, and 3 in favor of Nashville. This is another one I'm very intrigued in terms of the debut of a head coach, and in this case, it's Marko Mitrovic. Though this is going to be a tough task for him. I mean, going on the road to face against a Nashville side that, the good thing about Nashville, unlike what I said about other team, is yes, they did had a bit of a travel, but it's not as far as what we see Vancouver, Cincinnati, and even the Philadelphia Union has had to go to Hamilton uh, over the last couple of days, and now get to play at home against New England in this one. So yeah, should be very interesting to see how this matchup is going to go, and also wouldn't be surprised if New England maybe can pull off the upset in this one as well. Like I said, I'm very high on New England this year. I'm very high that Marko Mitrovic will turn things around and get this New England team back to being a competitive team in the East, like what we've seen in the past, and we'll see whether or not if this is the beginning of that. Now, moving on, we got Houston versus the Chicago Fire. So, all-time meeting 8-7-6 in favor of the Houston Dynamo. So, certainly this is kind of an interesting matchup because of the way that, for the Chicago Fire, after a magical season that they had last season of breaking that playoff drought, is this going to continue for the second consecutive season? They have not made the playoffs in consecutive year in over 15 years. And, with the way that they, of course, added more on their defense, which was kind of something that they desperately needed because while their attack is absolutely lethal and this is such a fun team to watch, their defense was leaky at best, and we'll see how it will do in this game against a Dynamo side that did a lot of signing this all season. They really improved their attack, which is something that they desperately needed after looking pretty poor last season. So should be a very fascinating matchup between both of these teams. And then moving on, we stay in Texas. In fact, all three Texas team is going to be playing at home. This is something that's a bit of a rarity to see all three Texas team all play at home on the same week. We go a little bit north to Dallas as they're going to be playing against Toronto FC. So in terms of the all-time meeting, 9-4-4 in favor of FC Dallas. So obviously we're not going to see the debut of Jar Sargent. I mean, as much as obviously I mentioned earlier before with Toronto FC getting a big boost of the signing of Jar Sargent, I wouldn't be surprised he might not be ready for a bit. I mean, they haven't even made the official signing yet. He hasn't even completed the medical just yet. So there's no doubt that once that is complete and with him getting integrated and back to fitness, I would say maybe give a couple of games, maybe like 2 or 3 or even 4 games before Jar Sargent can make an impact to this team. And when he does make an impact to this team, I mean, there's a lot of high expectation that he's going to have to meet with this team. But for now, they're playing against a Dallas team that, let's see whether or not if they can continue that momentum that they had last season, especially, last season Dallas really finished the season strong. Yes, obviously unfortunate that they ran into the machine known as the Vancouver Whitecaps, but the run that Peter Quill got this team in the second half of the season, very underrated and not really talked about. I have a feeling it could continue on this season as well. Now, moving on to the other Texas team, now going back south to the capital of Texas, that is Austin. Austin, that is. So they're going to be playing against Minnesota in this one. So this, of course, is the debut of Cam Knowles, and I'm interesting to see how he's going to do. Well, I say it's the debut of him as a head coach. This is actually not his first MLS game. This is actually going to be the third MLS game that is in charge because remember, in a couple of years ago before Eric Ramsey was hired, he was actually in charge of this team for the first 2 games of the season, and they did pretty well, at least in the first 2 games that is. So he's going to be in charge of this one for the third time, but this time for the first time as a head coaching role. All-time meaning 6-1-5 in favor of Austin FC, and I'm very intrigued to see the Cam Knowles system with the new system that they are running, which feels like they have gone completely away from the Ramsey ball, that kind of terrace ball kind of style of just bunker in and rely heavily on set pieces, but now more being a possession kind of team and also kind of a pressing kind of team, similar to what we saw with Adrian Heath a couple years ago. I wonder how that turn of tactics and also a change of formation as well will work out in the first game. I mean, they have their practice doing the preseason, but now when it's actually the real thing, it will be very fascinating to see. And it'll also be very fascinating to see whether or not if Minnesota can survive this tough start to the season. This is arguably the easiest game that they'll probably have, at least in the next 5 games. And I know that's saying something because, Austin is not really a bad team. They're a decent team as well. But when you look at the next couple of games that they have, the likes that they have to face against the likes of Cincinnati, Nashville, Vancouver, and San Diego, I mean that is a murderous road to start the schedule. That's probably the worst possible start of the schedule for a team that has a new head coach and going through a new system. But yeah, this is why it's very important in this game to see how they, of course, will do. And also, just like what I talked about, big signing with Toronto FC having Jar Sargent most likely is not going to be available for a bit. The same I would say about James Rodriguez. He's not going to be available in this one. He didn't even travel with the team. He probably won't be ready until maybe even after the home opener that they have against Cincinnati next week as well. Now, moving on, it's the big one, LAFC and Inter Miami. So this, of course, is the marquee matchup of the week. And they also label this as the Walmart Saturday showdown. That is, it feels like it's a kind of another gimmicky kind of marquee kind of name, just like we see in Sunday Night Soccer. But yeah, this game is going to be taking place at the Coliseum, which is right next door of where LAFC play at Bank of California Stadium, or known as BMO Stadium. That is, I can't believe I'm still saying the old name of that stadium. But yeah, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific start. All-time meeting 3-0-2 in favor of LAFC, and I wouldn't be surprised if this might be a preview of MLS Cup 2026 as well. I know it's crazy for me to say that this is a preview of something that is still so far from down the line, but you never know. I mean, this could be a good preview, especially with all the stars on talent, and the big storyline in this game is Sung and Bawanga versus Messi and his rest of his team as well. I mean, this should be a very star-studded matchup, and I expect should be a big crowd in this one. 70,000 plus should show up in this one, and yeah, definitely an early season showdown at the best, and I can't wait to watch this game. I mean, I think a lot of people will be gluing their eyes in terms of watching this one as two of the best team from their respective conference going head to head each other, and wouldn't be surprised if both of these teams might finish at the top of their respective conference by the end of the season. So from the marquee matchup of this week to possibly the worst matchup we will see this weekend, and probably one of the worst matchup we ever seen in a season opener. Yeah, I'm sorry to say, but San Jose Earthquakes versus Sporting KC is not a matchup that you want to watch, especially from a star-studded match like what we saw with LAFC versus Miami. It's crazy to see how this matchup would turn out to be. I mean, I don't want to say we might see a matchup that is a wooden spoon derby. I don't know if it's possible you can have a wooden spoon derby in the season opener, but this feels like it's that kind of game. I mean, I predicted both of these teams were going to be finishing the bottom two in the Western Conference in my predictions. So yeah, we'll see how this, of course, would turn out. All-time meeting 16-7 and 8 in favor of Sporting KC. This is one of three games that start at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And the other reason why I also say it's a wooden spoon derby and it could be a very lackluster game is that both of these teams they have a lot of missing pieces. I mean, both of these teams have incomplete roster heading into this game. So I feel like it's only fitting if this game ended 0-0, and it wouldn't really satisfy any of the fan base. But yeah, even with a win, I mean, even if the Quakes get a big win in this one against Sporting KC, do I really trust the fact that things would continue to be better with this team, especially there's just still so much question mark with this team, and the fact that it is still hard to believe that the only signing that they made this offseason was Timo Werner, and he's not even available in this game as well. Now, moving on, we got San Diego versus Montreal. So this is actually a first ever meeting that we see. So you usually see this happen sometimes, but especially when an expansion team faces against an interconference matchup. And while San Diego is no longer an expansion team, this is their second season, and most of the time when they face against Eastern Conference opponent, it's usually the first ever meeting, and this of course is the case. 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Now, despite the fact that San Diego did play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, they were the only MLS team to not play during this last batch of CONCACAF Champions Cup. That is, so they actually had a bit of a break since their last competitive game against Pumas, which could be a good and bad thing because it could be a good thing because now you don't have to worry about the fatigue level of going on the road and have to return back to league play on a short rest. But the bad thing is, it just kind of feel weird for them to have like a preseason where they have a competitive match in the middle of it, and now they're back into preseason mode. So we'll see how Mikey Vera's team will look in this one. I mean, I'm pretty sure with them off for about 2 weeks, I don't know if that might give them too much of a rust, but we'll see how they'll do in this game against Montreal, and a chance to maybe get all 3 points because they're facing a team that you would expect San Diego should beat, especially against a rebuilding team like Montreal and a team that I predicted probably will finish near the bottom of the East this season. Now, moving on to the final 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific start in the final Saturday game. It's the Portland Timbers and Columbus. So in this one, the Timbers have a 7-4-3 record over the Crews, and this, of course, is the debut of Henrik Reichum. So this will be very interesting to see how he sets up his team, and especially, it is a new era for the Columbus Crew. Gone are the days of Nancy Ball. Maybe we're now seeing Henrik Ball. You could say coming into this one, but yeah, should be a very fascinating matchup as well, and especially for the Portland Timbers. I believe last year, if I recall that last year when they play in their season opener, it was not a great memory. They played against the Vancouver Whitecaps and they got absolutely blown apart in that one. So they're hoping that's not going to be a repeat as well, especially against a pretty strong team like the Columbus Crew and a motivated Columbus Crew team as well. Because like I said, anytime when you have a new head coach, you get that new head coach boost, and we'll see whether that might be enough to propel against the Timbers, who probably are hoping that they get off to a better start compared to the last season as well. Now, moving on to the Sunday games. So the first Sunday game is the LA Galaxy versus NYCFC, and I believe this is actually the Sunday night soccer game that is 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific is the start. All-time meeting 4-0-3 in favor of NYCFC, and again, the Galaxy is another one of those teams that play in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. They play on Thursday. They were actually the last team to play in the first round of the first leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So yeah, they of course will get almost the same rest as a lot of these CONCACAF Champions Cup games, except you know they of course are playing on Sunday instead of some of these teams playing on Saturday itself. But again, you know, anytime when you go on the road, and especially going down to Panama and come back relatively quick, and the fact that they pretty much started most of their starters in that game against San Miguelito, it'll be very interesting to see how they will do in this game against NYCFC, a team that you know they actually have faced against this team before in the season opener. I believe last time when the Galaxy faced against NYCFC, wasn't it a win that the Galaxy has? So yeah, they will definitely be confident that might be the same case, albeit it will be a little bit tired coming into this one, especially traveling all the way back from Panama on a short rest to face against NYCFC in their home opener. And then last but certainly not least is the Seattle Sounders versus Colorado Rapids. So this game starts at 9:15 p.m. Eastern, 6:15 p.m. Pacific, which means this game is going to be on FS1. And again, just like what I said, hopefully this game doesn't get cut to college basketball in the middle of the way. But this is why you want to watch this game on Apple TV, because you know that if you watch it on Apple TV, there's no chance that the game would be cut to a different sport for no reason whatsoever. But in terms of the all-time meeting, it's been pretty dominant for the Sounders. 25, 6, and 7 is the all-time meeting. Of course, this is the debut of, oh god, I almost forgot who is the new head coach of the Colorado Rapids. God, I can't think of a name right now. I apologize to Rapids fans if I can't think of it on top of my head. Who is the new head coach of the team? But nevertheless, like I said, you know what I said about all these teams having new head coaches. Maybe get that new head coach boost to trying to booster the team, but it's not going to be easy to do so against a Sounders squad that I remember last year. Wasn't this the matchup where the Sounders at one point were up 3-0 in the game and just completely throw that game away and drew free? Yeah, I think that was the game that it is the case. So yeah, despite the fact that I know the all-time record seems pretty dominant in favor of the Sounders, I'm pretty sure they would love to avoid what happened last time, which was an utter embarrassment and another add to just a key theme in terms of last season, where you know the 2-0 lead is the most dangerous lead in sports. It was like last season the 3-0 lead was the most dangerous lead in sports because of the amount of times we saw last season where 3-0 leads are being blown left, right, and center. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the preview of all of these games from the opening weekend. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this preview, and let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 15 of these games that is going to happen. Again, it's great to see the season once again begin, and it's great to see that I'm once again back to what I do on the weekends, which is trying to watch multiple games on multiple screens, trying to keep up as much soccer as possible from this opening weekend. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.